For the longest time, this video was about something else entirely. I was on my usual merry way, coming up with things to talk about for said video, but I kept getting distracted by a game I had recently started playing. I decided to try multitasking the two and continued writing the script. I eventually finished the script, and it was pretty lackluster. It was obvious from reading it that I hadn't really put enough passion or thought into the script. I was just subconsciously rushing it so I can keep playing my game. Finally, I gave in. Let's do a video about Persona 3. I have a list. Not a physical one, but a mental list of different franchises that I know I'll end up liking, but I either don't have enough time to get around to yet, or I'm saving them for a particularly rainy day. Persona is the most recent of those franchises that I've gotten into, and predictably, the main reason for that is the release of Persona 5 a month ago. I know I could have started with 5 since each numbered game is standalone, but I was recommended to start with Persona 3 Fez Edition, so that's what I did. I'm currently 20 hours through the 80-hour long game, so let's just get into it. The very first thing that stands out, and possibly the most talked about thing with Persona, is the presentation. Persona is a very stylish franchise. The menus are slick as hell, the character designs are good looking, and the music is super catchy. Even better than that is the constant use of visual metaphors. A lot of things in the game, especially the more supernatural elements, are visual metaphors that often give insight into the characters. One small example of this is the Velvet Room being an elevator, which represents the protagonist being a transfer student who always has to move from one place to another, back and forth like an elevator. The game itself is split into two main sections. To simplify things, one half is similar to a visual novel, and the other half is a dungeon crawling RPG. Let's talk about the dungeon section first. You can form a party of up to 4 characters including yourself. During the beginning few hours of the game you are given a fixed party, but later on you get given the ability to pick characters you want, with each character having different strengths and weaknesses, so you're going to want a balanced team. Tartarus is a procedurally generated dungeon. The goal is to climb up and get enough experience to stand a chance against the bosses that appear on each full moon. But notice that the boss appearing isn't tied to how far through the dungeon you get or how high leveled you are, but instead on how long you've been playing through the game. This is a recurring theme throughout the game, and I adore the way that time management plays such a big role in Persona 3. This is something that my favourite game, Majora's Mask, also focuses heavily on. You can see shadows moving around in a dungeon, meaning that you can plan out your approach to each enemy beforehand. I much prefer this to RPGs where the opponent just jumps out of nowhere. The two ways of starting a fight are either if the shadow sees and attacks you, or if you hit them with your weapon. Swinging your weapon takes a while, so if you mistime it then the shadow gets a big chance to hit you instead. In most turn-based RPGs, initiating the battle like this means the fight will start with the opponent missing a chunk of health. But this time it's the person that starts the battle that gets to attack first. The shadows can be in groups of up to 4, and your character's team has up to 4 people too, meaning that you can have to take 4 attacks in a row before being able to do anything. The way that those two mechanics tie together means that you really have to be prepared for each battle, because some of these shadows are pretty powerful, and them getting the first hit can mean really bad things for you. And the rest of the battling has enough depth to keep things interesting. Your personas have moves that are different types. Think about the way Pokemon typing is done and you'd be very close. If you use a super effective move or a critical hit against your opponent, it will knock them over and allow you to do another attack. You are then incentivized to try and chain these hits together and knock down the entirety of the opponent's party one by one. If every opponent is knocked down, then you will be able to use an all-out attack, which is an extra really powerful attack. Persona's moves will always either use up SP, which is this game's equivalent of a magic meter, or your own HP. I can't think of another turn-based RPG where using up your own health is a consistent mechanic. However, you don't have to use your persona at all, since you also have a weapon that doesn't cost anything to use in battle, but is considerably weaker than most persona attacks. Every few floors in the dungeon are teleporters, so not only do you not have to start from the first floor every time, but it also becomes a game of one more floor, trying to see how far up you can get away with going. It becomes a game of risk and reward, and managing everything is a little bit stressful in places, but it's so fun and rewarding. My second favourite moment in this game so far was when I bit off more than I could chew and got to a floor of extremely powerful shadows. Managing to barely last these fights whilst also using up a lot of healing items and barely scraping by to the teleporter a couple floors higher. It was so much fun, especially compared to most RPGs like Pokemon, where you can always beat almost every opponent in a single hit. Now let's talk about the other half of the game. The game runs on a calendar system. It isn't in real time like Animal Crossing, but instead the game takes place over 1 year, and performing any action skips forward a few hours in the day, and sleeping skips to the next day. Everything you do during these parts will affect you during the dark hour. For example, you can tire yourself out by doing too much, meaning that you'll have to sleep early and not go to Tartarus, so you can catch up on your sleep. But because of the way time progresses and how busy the protagonist's life can get, you really do have to plan out this guy's life in your head and make lots of decisions. There's a surprising amount of freedom and depth. Well, I do assume this is a game that tricks you into thinking there's more depth than there actually is, but it does a very good job of masking this for such a long game. You can choose which characters you befriend and hang out with, as well as which school clubs you attend. Near the beginning, one of the characters mentions that school clubs don't actually expect you to attend every day, so feel free to try out multiple things. I signed up for the Kendo Club since I thought that would make my character a better fighter for the Tartarus sections, and I befriended one of the members of the club. After this, Mitsuru, one of the other characters, asked me to join the student council, so I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, and went along with it. The friend from the Kendo Club phoned me and asked me if I wanted to hang out on Sunday. Sure. But then after this I got asked the same thing by Chihiro, the treasurer from the student council, and of course, because I'm weak, I bailed on the Kendo Club dude to hang out with a cute girl instead. One angry phone call later, and I decided I'm too cowardly to go near the Kendo Club anymore. It goes without saying that this was my favourite moment of the game, and it's what made me fall in love with it. It feels like role-playing in such a pure sense of the phrase, and with interactions and decisions like these, I found it really difficult not to get so invested. The biggest example of these two halves of the game being connected to each other are the social links. Since personas are a physical manifestation of your soul, that means that the closer you get to someone, the stronger that manifestation gets. The personas themselves in this system are another visual metaphor, and social links are the measure of how strong your bond with specific characters are. Each of the characters you can befriend have their own storyline and character arc that you can help progress by making the correct dialogue choices and being there for their character at the right time. Which can get difficult like it did with me in the Kendo Club. Knowing that the other characters have things going on in their lives, whether I'm there to witness it or not, makes the world of the game feel so much more alive to me, and the thought of this being an 80-hour long story that I'm probably going to miss out on a lot of content of is insane. Usually games that are anywhere near this length have large portions where it feels like nothing of value is really happening, so in comparison Persona 3 Fares really does feel like it justifies its massive length. Whilst I do play games quite often and grew up with them, it's very rare that I get this invested in one. Persona 3 is such a special game, and I'd be so happy if it turns out the other 4 Persona games end up being anywhere near this level of quality. Hell, I might even end up doing another video about this franchise once I've played these other games.